this is Not Alicia here. Welcome back to my channel. This is Tutorial Tuesday. So if you haven't already, I've already showed you guys how to do a slip stitch heel. Now what I'm going to show you how to do is just normal short row heels to create this heel right here. Now this sock may look familiar because in my Flashback Friday Yarn Podcast video, I told you how I received an order from a customer and she wants me to knit her a pair of socks. And so this is what I have thus far with one sock, and then I have another sock, and I am ready to start turning the heels. And so I decided that I will show you this technique of how to do heels just in case the slip stitch heel is hard for you to do. Here is another knitting tutorial. So I am at the portion where I'm ready to knit my back side. Okay, I know this is my back side because I'm doing ribbing on the foot and the leg, and so my back side is straight, or the bottom of my foot is plain knit. So the first thing that you're going to do is knit to your last stitch. Now if you're brand new, in my previous tutorial videos I showed you guys how to knit. This video is not going to explain the basics. This video is to explain the heel that we are doing. So I'm knitting to my last stitch. I am at my last stitch. What I'm going to do is wrap and turn. So this whole heel section is us wrapping and turning our stitches. So with the last stitch, I'm going to slip it onto my next needle purlwise. I'm going to take my working yarn and wrap it around that needle, and essentially is wrapping around that stitch. Then I'm going to take my second needle and I'm going to slip it back over into the left hand needle, and I'm bringing my yarn now behind my work. Okay, now after doing so, I am turning my work. Now if you want, you can always place a stitch marker here so that you'll know that, okay, this is your wrap and turn stitches, or you can leave it because it will be very noticeable when you're working with these stitches. Now I'm gonna purl across until I get to the last stitch. Now I'm at my last stitch. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip the stitch purlwise, bring my yarn to the back. I'm going to take my left hand needle, and I'm going to slip that stitch back onto that needle, and I'm bringing my yarn to the front. Okay, and now I'm turning my work. So now I'm ready to knit. So now we're going to knit to the second to last stitch because we already have a slip stitch right here. So we're going to knit to that next last stitch, and we're just going to continue with these 2 rows until we have 10 stitches not worked. And I'm saying 10 because that's how many I casted on when I started my toe. So when I cast it on for my toe, I did 10 stitches, and then I decided to increase from there. If you did more stitches, then you would knit until you have however many stitches that you cast it on with. If you did toe up on your needle unworked. Now if you're working cuff down, then whatever amount of stitches that you leave unworked, make sure you leave that unworked when you get to your toe. So all I'm doing is I'm just knitting across until I get to my last stitch that's not worked. I'm at my last stitch. So what I'm doing is I'm purling it, I'm slipping it, excuse me. I'm slipping it purlwise. I am putting my yarn over that stitch that I just slipped, and now I'm slipping it back onto my left hand needle, and then I'm putting my yarn in the back. And you will see that I have two stitches that I did not knit into, 2 stitches that I slipped. Now I'm turning my work, and now I'm just going to purl across until I get to the last stitch that hasn't yet to be slipped. Okay. I am now to that last stitch of what hasn't been worked. This is the first stitch that we slipped. This one right here is the first stitch that we slipped, and now I'm on my second to last one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip it purlwise. I'm going to bring my yarn around to the back side, and then I'm going to slip this stitch back into my left needle, bringing my yarn to the front. And then I'm going to flip my work around, and now I'm ready to knit across until I get to the last stitch that has not been wrapped and turned. So I want you guys to continue doing this until, like I say, you got the amount of stitches that you casted on if you work toe up, or remember how many stitches that you're going to leave, so if you're working cuff down, so that you can have that same amount of stitches when you do your toe section. Okay, at this point you should have all your wrapped and twisted stitches, and then you should have the amount of stitches that you are leaving for your toe cast on that's not worked. I went on and started correcting some as far as doing the next step, so mine's may look a little different, but I will catch you up to speed right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to knit to that first wrapped stitch. And if you haven't put a stitch marker there, the way you can tell where your first wrap stitch is where you see these holes, these loose stitches right here. So I know I need to knit all these across, and this brown stitch will be my first wrap stitch. So that's what I'm doing right now. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take your wrap stitch and you're going to slip it onto your right hand needle. If you look, you will see this loop that you created when you wrapped that stitch. I have 2. Don't worry about that one. I will get into why I have 2. But what you want to do is you want to take that wrap stitch and you want to put it over your left hand needle, and then you want to slip that stitch that's on your right hand needle back on your left hand needle. Then in your case you're going to knit both strands together. Me, I'm knitting 3 because like I said, I had already went on. So you knit both strands together, and now all you do is wrap this again and wrap the next stitch. And so that will give you 2 strands, because you see how I have 1 strand right here? I'm wrapping again so that I can purl across. So you just wrap again like you've been doing, slip this over on your left hand needle, and then I'm going to purl my way across. And so purling is the same way. Purl to your first wrapped stitch, and you would have 1 strand. I am coming up on my next wrap stitch, and all I'm doing is slipping that over. I'm finding, in my case, the 2 strands. Your case is going to be the first strand, and then I'm taking this slip stitch and I'm putting it back on my left hand needle, and then I'm purling all stitches together. I am wrapping the next stitch. And now turning my work and ready to knit to the next wrap stitch. So now both stitches on the end, you should have 2 wraps on that stitch. And now you're caught up with me, and now I'm showing you how to pick up both strands, so you'll be knitting or purling 3 together. And keep doing these 2 rounds or these 2 rows, and you should always be wrapping the next stitch twice. And when you have 1 stitch on each side that you have to wrap, I will meet you back here. Okay, so I just finished re-wrapping this last stitch, meaning I wrapped it twice now, and then on the other end I have that where I wrap twice as well. So now we're basically finished the heel, and your heel should look like this, depending on how you wrap. Here's the seam, quote unquote, and now we have the heel. So now we are ready to start working in the round, including our front stitches. So with these 2 that's wrapped on each side, this is how you work it. So this is the stitch that's wrapped, that I just finished wrapping, and now I'm knitting across. So I'm at the part where I just I came to my last wrap stitch. So we just worked this stitch how we've been working all the other ones, picking up these 2 strands and then slipping this back onto the left hand needle, knitting all 3 together. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this first stitch on this side. And the reason why I am wrapping this stitch is because we don't want to have a big hole here at the end of our work. I am slipping this stitch over just like how we've wrapped. And now of course we're not going to have 2 strands because we're just wrapping this one, so it'll be 1, and I'm just slipping that over. I am putting my yarn forward, and now I am going to purl back on this side. I'm working my way back where my heel portion is, and I am purling back till I get to this last stitch. So now I'm at the last stitch that needs to be worked, and all I'm doing is picking up these stitches like previously before, putting this stitch onto that left hand needle, and then purling these together. Now, like before, we're going to take a stitch from the beginning of the front side so that we can close this gap. We are going to knit across, and now we're going to work in the round. So essentially, if you want to think about it, this starts a new row or a new round. So you know how when we knit, this would start our round, meaning that we went around once. Now this right here will start our new round technically, because we're joining both of these together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to knit across. When I get to this portion of where we wrap that stitch, I pick up that loop, knit those 2 strands together just like we've been doing in creating the heel, and then I keep knitting or doing my pattern, and then when I get to this next stitch that we wrap, I just repeat the steps that I did, and I just keep going around and around like that, and now I'm ready to work the foot of my socks. So I want to thank you all for watching.